But I don't know. I think it's just so hard to punt on this team being able to make a back-to-back.
Você quer ter aulas com grandes personalidades do cenário e evoluir ainda mais sua gameplay? E utilizar todo esse aprendizado adquirido em um campeonato super organizado e com live stream oficial? Tudo isso você encontra na Analistas. E mais, você não precisa ter um time, a plataforma encontra um time para você que se encaixe na sua gameplay. Além disso, lá você também vai encontrar um guia completo com todos os pixels em todos os mapas para você deixar seu Sova, sua Viper insano. E na Neverest você também vai ter aulas toda semana com um coach profissional ao vivo. Você vai ter um coach profissional acompanhando sua performance e os assinantes têm direito a análise de POVs ilimitadas. E eu consegui um desconto ainda maior para quem é inscrito aqui no canal. Usando o cupom SMokemid você tem 15% de desconto. Fala galera, tudo bem com vocês? O Play Chat é um dos maiores podcasts sobre Valorant. Ele é composto por casters da língua inglesa. E durante um episódio recente, eles debateram se a Loud conseguiria vencer o Lock-in e assim conseguir ser bicampeão do mundo. Apesar do Lock-in não ser o principal evento do ano, por ter equipes de todo o mundo, ele é sim considerado um campeonato mundial. E separamos esse trecho aqui pra gente conferir. Então já deixa seu like nesse vídeo, confere se está inscrito aqui no canal e vamos lá ver o que foi falado.
But yeah, could Loud get the first back-to-back? Could they do it here in Brazil with the crowd on their side, with the way that their bracket is shaped out, with the new roster, without Pancata, without Saucy, but still retaining the other, core three members who are all great in their own right, bringing in two upcoming guys? Could they do it? First off, they're up against Genji in the first round. We talked about that game. That should be a win. Then they're up against FPX or Carmine Corp. That should be a win. And then in the semis, there are two, maybe three teams they could be playing against, depending on how much you want to rate Giants. But they could be going up against Koi, they could be going up against NRG or Giants in the semifinal game. And then presumably, probably against DRX from there. That is their likely trajectory.
I feel like presumably that would be another Optic versus Loud, pretty much, except it's just NRG against New Loud, which I think inherently would be pretty hype that Riot keeps seeding these two teams to play each other, even if they're slightly different now. But I don't know. I think it's just so hard to punt on this team being able to make a back-to-back, just first of all, based off the format of how insanely hard it is actually to be able to win this one out.
The fact that you slip up once you lose is crazy difficult, and it normally leads to massive upset results. And this is the definition of not an upset. Like, in order for someone to make a back-to-back, you need to prevent every upset from happening. You're considered usually the favorite in whatever match you have because you've just won the previous tournament. It's not exactly the same here because they've made two big changes, but they're considered the favorites in a lot of the games.
I'm going to stick with that. I think they can make it all the way through the bracket, and I think Kaunstein is going to surprise people. I think he's a super sick player. I think he's going to look really good.
Yeah, he's very good. I'm more worried about Tui's, to be honest, because it's just such a role swap. But Kao and Xena, I feel pretty confident about. But the shoes are just so big as well, man. Sassy and Pancata are such incredibly good players. You're trying to fill the shoes of a genuine Brazilian super team. That was the whole point of that. And it's not like they had the pick of the litter. They didn't pick up Kao and Xena and Tui's because they were the best initiator and smoke players in Brazil. They picked them up because they were available and they thought they could turn them into that. That's a very different scenario from when Sassy and Pancata got added to the team. I want to just showcase for a sec how crazy the format is. So you need to win 5 games in a row, right? It's kind of simple, the format. You just got to win 5 games in a row and you are the champion. If anyone does that, they are the champion of Brazilian lock-in. Obviously, it gets more tough as you go on. If you look back through any of the major tournaments that have been played in Valorant, champions. So my point here generally being, nobody has won either every game at a Masters tournament or 5 games. So the only team to win every game at a tournament was Sentinels when they first turned up to Reykjavik, because that was, the double elimination and they just went through the top. But they only won 4 games. They didn't actually have to even play 5. And I think we can all agree that the difficulty level has gone up quite significantly at this point compared to the very first LAN event ever where Sentinels came in and smoked it. So I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison. And the only other time that it's been done was last Champions. Ascend won both matches in their group, and then they went into playoffs and they beat Team Secret, Team Liquid, and Gambit to win Champions 2021. So they won 5 games in a row. But But if you recall, that first game against Vivo Keat, they should have fucking lost, but they were given like the 7-round disadvantage or something. It was just like some bizarre ruling that went kind of in their favor, but Vivo Keat were also using an exploit. You know, don't want to dig all of that up again, but I feel like even that was not the same, like, even that isn't necessarily the clean, like, 5 wins in a row kind of deal. But that's the closest you get. Everybody else, every other win that we've had, you know, FPX, they had their loss in the group stages, although when they went to playoffs, they kind of dominated that at Copenhagen. Reykjavik Optic lost in the group stage, and they lost in the upper bracket final. And then when Gambit won, they dropped to 100 Thieves in the group stage in that crazy game where Hiko won the 1v3. So most of the time, the champion of a tournament has a slip up somewhere along the road. And this time, you're not allowed a single one. It's a really punishing format, obviously.
Yeah.
And in the past, to kind of go down a different road, in the past, we never had a Brazilian team who could really hit the top levels until Loud, until they actually managed to put together a super team. There was previous projects from like that old Vikings roster that you were just talking about. That was Saucy and that was Sidak, and that was them trying to put a different group of talent together to make something in a similar way. That never worked out for them. Now you've kind of lost one piece of that leadership that made the team what it was. You've lost probably the best controller player in the world, or one of the best controller players in the world, and are trying to slot a new player into that. It's just like such a big void to fill. You don't have your coach that was with the Loud roster either, in Bazooka, who they always talked about how much impact he provided that squad in being able to make changes and in being able to help develop those younger players. So now they kind of have to reset and do that all over again with only a couple months to do. It just feels really, really improbable that they're going to be able to make that miracle run with all of those limiting factors in place.
Mas e aí, qual a sua opinião sobre o que foi falado? Você acha que a Loud vai conseguir o bicampeonato mundial? Caso consiga, será a primeira equipe da história a ter esse feito no Valorant. Mas é isso, rapaziada, o vídeo vai ficando por aqui. Deixa a sua opinião sobre tudo isso aí nos comentários. Confere se tá inscrito aqui no canal e também deixa aquele like nesse vídeo. É algo bem rápido pra você, mas ajuda demais o nosso trabalho. E se você assistiu esse vídeo até o final, deixa aí nos comentários o seu palpite de qual será a final do Lock-in. Quais são os 2 times que disputarão esse título? Mas é isso, aquele abraço, até o próximo vídeo.